Welcome everyone to the Lord of Mysteries novel summary series on Ani Monolith. In the previous part, Klein begins his journey to becoming a Beyonder under the guidance of Captain Dunn Smith and Old Neil. After entering the Nighthawk's alchemy room, Dunn Smith informs Klein that the materials for the Seer potion are available, allowing Klein to become a Seer. Klein, after drinking the Seer potion, experiencing a surreal vision filled with mysterious shapes and voices. Neil explains that these reactions are normal for new Beyonders, and he teaches Klein the practice of cogitation, a method to control and develop his new abilities. Through focus and meditation, Klein begins his training, starting to grasp the deeper mystical knowledge associated with his new role as a Seer. After Klein successfully learned cogitation, Old Neil continued to instruct him on how to use common and extremely useful abilities for Beyonder, spirit vision. After Klein started to get acquainted with the spirit vision, Old Neil did not forget to explain the profound meaning of the spirit vision. Spirit vision is an ability that most Beyonders can learn and allows the Beyonder to glimpse into non-physical parts of a human. When a Beyonder learns spirit vision, they can observe the auras exuded from ether body or ether body itself, which let them discover presence of any being that has a spirit body. From their intensity, brightness, and color, they can deduce the being's health. Then Klein began to see different colors, each color corresponding to their health and their emotions. Red is enthusiastic and excited, orange is warm and satisfied, yellow is cheerful and outgoing, green is calm and harmonious, blue is alert and thinking, white is bright and positive. The dark color is sad, tragic, silent. Purple is unsociability. These colors, according to Old Neil, are called aura. Then, when he focused his eyes on Neil, Klein saw his aura, which consisted of different colors and was not completely tilted to one side. However, while observing Neil's aura, Klein was suddenly startled when he discovered a pair of seemingly transparent and illusory eyes behind Neil and staring at him. Upon hearing Klein's warning about this, Neil told them to ignore it and explain that it was a manifestation of ritual magic. This made Klein extremely excited because he thought of Yin Yang's eyes that often appear in the series. Then Neil reminded Klein that he should practice regularly to minimize the effects on the soul body such as headaches and discomfort when using spirit vision. Klein then asked Neil how to exit the state of spirit vision. Neil said that you should do the same thing as entering cogitation, then repeat the command over and over to get your mind out of spirit vision. However, these operations were too time-consuming, so Neil showed Klein how to use the switch so he could easily exit the state of spirit vision. That is to train yourself to take a certain action as a sign to stop using your supernatural power. For example, Neil explains that his switch is to tap the middle of the forehead twice. When doing this, he can come in or exit the state of spirit vision. After listening to Neil's experience, Klein decided to set up the same switch as Neil for convenience in all cases. Once Klein had performed the switch, Neil immediately said that using spirit vision was very physically draining, so the Beyonder needed to rest to recover. Only when becoming sleepless does this become unnecessary. Besides, Neil also reminded Klein to take the time to review knowledge related to Epic 4 to find clues for the Antagonist notebook case. Of course, Klein also doesn't forget to practice self-defense measures, typically shooting. Then at this moment Dunn Smith entered the room with a compliment for Klein's extremely quick learning. Of course, Dunn Smith also warned Klein not to be curious about mysterious sounds or images to avoid losing control. After leaving Blackthorn Security Company, Klein returned home and took a long nap to recover his physical strength. Then Klein woke up and looked at the clock to check if it was time for the gathering to start. Because before that, Klein as Mr. Fool made an appointment with Justice and the Hanged Man that they would maintain the gathering at 3 p.m. on Monday. When the appointment time was approaching, Klein closed the door and windows, then he used the switch to come into the state of spirit vision to check if there were any spirits or souls spying here. Once he was sure there wasn't anything unusual, Klein lightly tapped the glabella twice. Klein then began to walk the four corners of the room in a counterclockwise direction while reciting incantations in Chinese. However, this time Klein did not need to prepare 4 portions of food, because the 4 black squares on the back of Klein's hand took care of that. Then Klein entered the same state as before, but the feeling was much more comfortable because he had now become a Beyonder. Klein then saw 2 glowing red stars among countless others reacting to him. This reminded Klein of Neil's teachings on astral projection. Then Klein turned into a large temple with full banquet tables like before. After finishing his work, Klein immediately went to the main chair and used a thick mist to cover his entire body and face. Klein then reached out and touched the 2 red stars that reacted to him. In a room on a ship without a helmsman, Alger is sitting in a chair in the captain's position and staring intently at a bottle of black liquid with so many mysterious things inside. Then when the time was nearly 3 p.m., Alger suddenly saw a bright red halo of light radiating and he quickly disappeared soon after. At the same time in Empress Borough, in the splendid hall residence, after finishing class, Audrey quickly prepared a notebook and a pen so that after the gathering ended, she would immediately write down the formula shared by the hanged man. Then when Audrey stood in front of the mirror on the dressing table, she suddenly saw a bright red halo of light radiating and she was immediately sucked into it. In the mysterious space he created, at 3 p.m. Klein saw the familiar silhouettes of Justice and the hanged man. As soon as she arrived, Audrey, under the alias Justice, happily greeted Mr. Fool and the hanged man were originally aliases for Klein and Alger, respectively. Then Audrey and Alger both waited for the announcement to start today's gathering. However, Klein did not rush to speak, but only attentively observed the two of them with spirit vision and clearly saw the aura of each person. Justice and the hanged man's auras are no different from the others, however Klein discovered that the hanged man's aura has emotions were blue mixed in with some orange. Klein focused his mind and took another careful look. He could faintly see that deep within the hanged man's ether body was a deep blue, akin to the sea. It felt like a tidal storm. So Klein focused on observing and discovered that the hanged man possessed astral projection, and this proved that the hanged man was a beyonder. Even Klein was surprised to realize that the hanged man was stronger than old Neil. However, Klein later denied this speculation, because this was a space created by Klein, so it would have an advantage in exploring others. And when he was at the Blackthorn Security Company, maybe Neil deliberately hid it so he couldn't see more things. Klein then turned to look closely at Justice again, and he realized that her characteristic only appeared in the beyonder. At this moment, the hanged man also finished greeting Justice. Justice then excitedly asked if the hanged man had received the ghost shark blood she sent. The hanged man immediately replied that he had received that precious item and he did not forget to praise Justice's abilities. Because ghost shark blood is not easy to find, Justice can quickly send it to the appointed place. Then, after Justice had focused his attention, the hanged man began to speak out the formula for the spectator sequence. After finishing telling the formula, the hanged man did not forget to remind Justice to be careful with the dosage when using the solution, because just a little more will cause the user to lose control. The hanged man even suggested that Justice should practice chemical experiments first to avoid risks. Of course, these problems Justice already knew. The hanged man then mentioned cogitation and he quickly explained cogitation to the best of his knowledge. The hanged man told Justice that after consuming the potion, quickly begin cogitation to control your spirituality and energy. Make sure to practice every day to truly grasp the powers of the potion. Dig out the meaning it symbolizes and even more of its mysteries. That way, you can avoid the danger of losing control to the greatest extent. And the meaning of a potion mainly lies in its name, such as spectator. However, Klein under the alias Mr. Fool, who was silently listening to the conversation, suddenly spoke up and explained, it's not about discovery, but rather acting. The name of a potion is not only symbolic, it's also imagery. It is the key to digesting. After hearing these precious words of Mr. Fool, the hanged man was extremely excited because this experience would help him a lot. Klein immediately seized the opportunity and said that he wanted to receive compensation commensurate with his experience to use sequence most effectively. Because Roselle's knowledge recorded in the diary is certainly extremely extraordinary and valuable. Of course, the hanged man and Justice were not surprised by Mr. Fool. Then Klein made a request that he wanted copies of the Diary of Roselle the Great, even if it was just one sheet. When hearing about the Diary of the Great Roselle, both Justice and the hanged man were extremely surprised and of course they were very excited with this new information. Because information about Roselle's diary is only limited to those in charge, such as the Nighthawks, Justice and the hanged man are both hearing about this diary for the first time, or rather they do not know what it is. In what form was Roselle's knowledge recorded? Then Justice asked Mr. Fool said that she heard from friends who loved antiques that Roselle had written notes in a very strange type of symbols and writing that no one could understand. So Justice also wondered how she and the hanged man could narrate the content of Roselle's diary pages if they didn't understand their meaning. If she copied those symbols and letters onto paper, where should Justice send them so that Mr. Fool can receive? This is also Klein's current concern, because he cannot reveal his address, but he is also required to have copies from that diary. Then Klein suddenly thought that he could create a temple with just his wish, so perhaps he also had the ability to let others directly print what was in their minds. Klein then asked Justice to test this idea with him. That is, you should think of any content with a strong desire to write it down. Upon receiving the request, Justice immediately followed and thought of a poem by Roselle and wanted to write it, then Klein sensed Justice's wish. He then used the pen as a medium to instruct Justice to write down the content she desired. When she saw Roselle's verse appear on the paper, Justice was terrified because she thought Mr. Fool has the ability to read minds. However, Klein explained that he was only instructing her. It means he just simplified the process of writing for her and made it become an imprint. If Justice or another did not wish to express it, nothing would appear. Witnessing this magical and extremely useful method of Klein, Justice became more enthusiastic in searching for Roselle's diary at Mr. Fool. Of course, Klein's rule is fair exchange, so the previous advance payment will be converted into 2 copies of Roselle's diary. If Justice and the hangman collect more, he will pay them accordingly. Of course, he will pay for this with the contents of Roselle's diary, because he can understand the great emperor's writing. When Mr. Fool ended the exchange, the hanged man did not forget to remind Justice to be careful when using the spectator ability. Because spectator can discover their habits, lying, or their sense of nervousness. From those minute clues, the user can grasp their true thoughts. Everyone is different because of their emotions. They will secrete different things and different smells. Only a real spectator can sniff it out. However, spectator has the ability to be drawn into other people's feelings and experiences to the point of losing control. So you need to be alert and aware of your position as just a spectator.